Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at Fleecing Olympus. This is a game that's put out by Passport Game Studios, and it's designed by Eric and Cecilia Hyland and illustrated by Matt Franklin. It's basically a card game where there's a little bit of dice rolling involved there, but don't get tied down to either of those two categories because there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than those two names would actually give warrant to. So let's go ahead and get down to the table. I'll show you in a very general way how the game plays, and we'll come back with some final thoughts in a few moments, okay? So let's go ahead and get down to it. So the goal of Fleecing Olympus is to have the most gems on your side of the table at the end of the game. The end of the game is going to trigger when this deck has gone through at least once in a 4-player game. In a 5-6-player game, you go through the deck twice. Or if only one person has gems left behind their screens. Now, at the beginning of the game, it's randomly determined by a die roll that who gets to be the starting game, who gets to be the active player, and who gets to have the judge token, or the judgment token rather. And then everybody is dealt out randomly these different god abilities. And as you can see here, there's Hera, Poseidon, Athena, and Zeus. And then there's also Hermes and Apollo. And then on the other side of Apollo is Artemis. This is the only card that has a double-sided with two different people on it. And then there is Aphrodite and Ares, and then also Hades in the game as well. But each god card does have a even side and an odd side, and both of the difficulties, or rather both of the special player powers here, are different on each side of these cards. You also start with 5 cards, and these are cards that will be played during the course of the round that is specifically for playing cards during each player's turn, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Now, the first thing that will happen here is that whoever is the active player will choose which side of his god card he's going to use. He's going to play the even ability or the odd ability. So basically, Poseidon here says odd is keep one of your cards, then decide whether all players pass their card to the left or the right. And then the even side is draw 3 cards and add them to your hand, then put 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of the deck. Well, we're going to go ahead and choose to do the even side, and so we will take the start player token, or the active player token, and put it on the side that it is supposed to be on. So it's on even, it should be on the even side like this. Then he's going to roll the dice, but before he does that, he needs to choose which of the people are going to be the target of a wager between himself and the other person. So he's going to choose Athena over here. All right, so Athena is going to be the target of the wager, and Poseidon is going to be the active player. So he's going to roll the dice, and it is 7. All right, now 7 is not an even number, so Poseidon is going to be the target of the wager, even though he's the one initiating it. And when that is the case, you take the lower number and add 1 to it, and that's how many gems he is owing to Athena right now. Had this been something like this, where it was an even number, then Athena would be the one owing the wager to him, and he would take the higher number, add 1 to it, and that's how many gems Athena would be owing Poseidon. But at this particular case, this is how it goes. So right now, Poseidon is actually owing Athena 2 gems. Now at this point, after the wager has been determined, where Poseidon is owing Athena 2 gems, now people can start playing cards from their hand. And their hand cards are different kinds of ability. You have legend cards, fate cards, greed cards, destiny cards. Those are the 4 different kinds of cards you have available to you. Now, legend and fate cards are basically going to be adding, they're going to be changing or adding to the total of the wager right now. So if this one was played, Poseidon would be adding 2, so he would owe 4 gems to Athena rather than just 2. Or you have Clotho's threads. which would add 1 to it. That's basically what Fate and Legend cards do. But if you play a Legend card, once a Legend card has been played, no Fate cards can be played, and vice versa. So that's something to be on the lookout for. You also have Greed cards, which allow you to take gems from the bank, which I'll get to why in just a few moments. Then there's also Destiny cards, which do a number of different things. They could affect, they could make people re-roll the dice. They could change whether or not this is odd or even. They could be doing a number of different things. But those are the different kinds of cards that are in your hand. Now, when you play a card, the first one that you play is free. Everybody can play 1 card for free, but any card after that will cost you 1 gem in order to pay it, and that is always paid into a bank area, which is why these greed cards exist, is so that you can take gems back from the bank at some point in time. So maybe in this situation, Poseidon may want to play right off the bat Pandora's Box, because Pandora's Box flips this over to the odd side, or vice versa, whichever side it may be on. So now the wager is now in his favor, where Athena is having to pay him 7 gems. Now this is going to continue until everybody passes on playing a card, or the person with the judgment token says stop and ends the playing card phase. But until one of those 2 conditions are met, people can continue to play cards as many as they want to, as long as they're paying the costs for that. So if we go over here to Athena, she wants to play Pandora's Box as well. And you keep in mind, there's not a order that you have to play in. Anybody can play at any point in time, but she's seen that Poseidon played Pandora's Box and flipped it, so she's going to do the same thing and flip it back to even, so now that she is going to be the recipient of the wager. Hera over here says, you know what, I think I want to have some fun, and plays Perseus's Aegis. And so basically what this says, it says the active player re-rolls both dice. So he's going to take the dice and re-roll both, and it comes up with double 3s. Now, double 3s is interesting because there's no difference in the number, so it's just the value of the die, not with no additions added onto it except for cards that may have been played. So right now, it is an even number, and so Athena is owing Poseidon $3. Now at this point, maybe Zeus says, okay, that's enough. So he's going to use his token, and now Athena has to pay Poseidon 3 gems. And now all of these cards are going to go away into a discard pile. We'll just go ahead and put that right here. The active player token gets passed to the next person clockwise order, and the judgment token is going to be passed to the player who had to pay the wager. In this case, it is also the person who is getting the start player token, so it comes back to the person to their right, so Poseidon would actually be getting the judgment token this turn. After that, everybody can draw back up to 5 cards, so Poseidon played 1, Athena played 1, and Hera played 1 as well. So now everybody's back up to 5, and now we begin a new round with Athena choosing which side of her power that she wants to use, the odd or the even, flipping this card, or this token rather, to the right side, picking a target, rolling the dice, and then going through a round of playing cards. And that's how the game continues until, as I said earlier, this deck has been gone through either 1 or 2 times, depending on the number of players, or one player has all of the gems behind their shield. So that's about that for Fleecing Olympus. Again, wasn't able to show you all of the nuances and how all of the different cards affect gameplay and how all that goes into effect, but I gave you a basic understanding of how everything works together and how everything is supposed to kind of flow throughout the course of a round or a turn. So hopefully you get a basic idea of how it's going to work out. Now, with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into my pros and cons. The pros first, as usual. My first pro for the game is the graphic design and the artwork. First of all, the artwork is great. Matt Franklin did a tremendous job illustrating this game and using an art style that is just very clean, but very, I guess you could say, thematic and inspiring, I guess. Maybe it catches everything that the different gods that are depicted kind of carry with them, and the different artifacts that are used as the different cards that you play during the course of the game. Everything was just illustrated so beautifully and so well that it really helped my thematic involvement in the game, even though it wasn't really necessary. My second pro of the game was component quality. The component quality was really great. It's just basically cards, a bunch of gems, and a couple of really chunky golden dice. But even the shields that were used in the game were very well designed. They also were very sturdy. They weren't flimsy. I've had a lot of shields in other games where they've been just really flimsy and you felt like they were going to fall over or blow over at the drop of a hat, and these were not like that. The golden dice, first of all, really cool colored choice as that's concerned. But even still, I like the fact that they had rounded corners. I like the fact that they were slightly larger than normal so that they're chunky and there's a little bit of more heft to them. And the card quality was all good as far as that's concerned on the game as well. So the component quality was great. I think they did a great job producing the game, and it's really good. My third pro of the game is the fact that you all are going to have different abilities, and you have two different abilities on your God card, whatever it might be, the odd or the even ability, and they're both separately different. And I like that because it gives you more choices to make. And, sometimes the odd might be the better route to take. Sometimes the even might be. I know it's just a simple choice, but it's the right kind of choice in this level of game. And I like the fact that they've done that. And it also brings in this kind of a wagering kind of betting idea because you're hoping that it comes up. Even if you've picked the even power, you're hoping it comes up odd if it comes up if you're using the odd power. So I like that inclusion of the game to kind of tie some of this abstracted nature together in using those different powers in a meaningful way in the game. My final pro of the game is the actual playing a card phase. The cards that are played are clever in that they are affecting the game in a meaningful way as well, but at the same time, not so much so. Now, they can kind of add up pretty quick, and the person who has the judgment token needs to make sure that they're kind of paying attention to what's going on so that maybe maybe they want the person who is the target player to lose. And so they want to make sure that they're kind of stopping the playing cards phase at the right point so that happens. Or maybe they want the active player to get stuck with owing some gems. It's really whatever they want, but they do have to kind of pay attention and watch what's going on and be able to maybe even conduct how some of those cards are being played. But that does lead me into my first con, and my first con is the playing cards phase because man, it can be really chaotic, and the rulebook actually says you determine how chaotic or structured the playing action cards phase is. And that's kind of unfortunate. I wish it were able to be a little bit more structured. Like maybe you can choose to pass or not pass, and if you don't pass, it goes around the table, and then you have the opportunity to play again to choose. But if everybody's passed after you did, then the round's over. I don't know, something like that. But I like the idea of having a free-flowing playing cards phase, but at the same time, you run into problems because there's always going to be arguments when two people play cards at the same time. Well, who gets to play first? Well, the judgment player, the person who has a judgment token, gets to choose who is the one which card fires off first. But then there's going to be arguments. Well, you only did that because you wanted this to happen, and oh my goodness, it just opens up to Pandora's box of difficulties, because it just fosters ill will, if that makes any sense. And that's really my main con of the game, is that playing cards phase was a little bit too loosey-goosey for me. I didn't like how it was so free-form. I wanted a little bit more structure, and unfortunately, how much structure it had was largely dependent upon whoever had the judgment token, and that's just not enough for me, because the person who has the judgment token might be just having a bad day and they're just enjoying the chaos where everybody else is in misery. But you get with the idea. I liked the game for the most part. There was just that one part that I wanted a little bit more structure in over the course of the game. But hey, that's about that. That's about all I can say really with Fleecing Olympus. They did a great job with production quality, artwork, graphic design. I love how the cards are laid out because it's very clear. Fonts that were used were not too small, except for on some of the God cards. Because there was so much text, they had to shrink the text to fit it all in. That was unfortunate, but not that big of a deal for me. That's why I didn't mention it until now. This is a good game. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10 because I did enjoy the game. I think it's a fun experience to go through. But I do think that there has to be a little bit more structure during that play card phase to really gather as much enjoyment out of it as possible. So that would be my suggestion, is to go into that playing cards phase with as much structure as the rules will allow, making sure that people have the opportunity to play their cards and pay for them and carry out its effect before somebody else plays a card, so there's not too much confusion and ill will going on there. But that's it for me, a 6 out of 10 for Fleecing Olympus. Thanks for joining me. I do appreciate it. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care now.